there's a lot of strategies and guidelines and things. It's a bit confusing.
Like what?
Sustainable State of Victoria, Growing Victoria Together, Our Future Sustainability Action Statements.
Yep.
Victorian Greenhouse Strategy, EPA Industry Greenhouse Program.
Certainly is plenty.
Where do you start? Jesus.
Luckily for you, I mean, a lot of that will just be good background knowledge for you, because in your hort industry, there's not a lot that you have to get licensed or anything like that for. You'd have to have a fairly big business, say in hydroponics or something like that, to even need an agreement with the EPA.
Yeah. And we've done our chemicals one I did. Done a chemicals one a couple of weeks ago, and that sort of cleared up.
Chemical skills a little bit different to your everyday running of the place, though.
Yeah.
Mel's in. This is going to probably slow us down a little bit, but we'll get there. Mel's saying hi. Okay. Yeah, so as far, we are actually going to have a bit of a look at the legislative, what's around in a minute, because there's not only Victorian stuff, there's federal stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's complicated even more. But just to go back to your chemical spill for a minute, our chemical events are really different to the legislative requirements for running a business. So, yeah, sure, if you had a big chemical spill, say you lost a big tank of whatever, probably fertiliser or a weed killer or something like that, you'd certainly need to let the EPA know. And we'll talk about the other things you might have to do in a minute. Now, I am all ready. What order am I going to do this in? Let's just have a quick recap of what we did last week first. Get the right slide back. That was where we got up to. So what did we talk about last week before I get right into PowerPoint boredom stuff?
About the cost of resources and things like that.
Yeah, so all the things.
What resources you use.
Yeah, cost is one way of measuring our resources, isn't it?
Cost not as in just money, but like what it takes to do revegetation and all that sort of thing. Okay,
that's probably a good one, because we're trying to improve the environment there, aren't we?
Yeah.
So what sort of things? What are our inputs when we want to do a re-veg plot somewhere?
We did a big costings outline for it as a part of the assessment. So all your materials, labour, time, and basically.
So you put weed mat down and all that sort of stuff when you do re-veg?
Yeah, we got pricing for that and the pegs and labour, fencing, the actual plants themselves.
Fencing's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what are our environmental impacts from fencing?
Keeps pests out. Pretty much,
But where do your materials come from? What sort of materials are you going to use?
Yeah, like gal and all that sort of thing, so steel.
Yes. So you use, what is it, post and wire or?
Yeah, gal and star pickets.
Okay, so you don't use any wood? Or you didn't?
Nah, we didn't.
Yeah, you could though.
Yeah.
So the impacts there would be interesting. Obviously, hang on. Mel said it's expensive, and the fence was around the re-veg site was expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be really good if you could still do your fence.
Yeah, I've probably got it some.
And use proper wood posts. So again, I guess economically, there's some things you could look at there just to see if you can recycle any material. Certainly, if it wasn't your first re-veg site, you might be able to reuse some materials.
Yeah.
If you've got something established, and then you can maybe take your fence out and use it somewhere else. And by the way, I think your re-veg site's going pretty well.
Yeah, better than I thought.
William Moore with Erin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did the small one.
Oh,
Not
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was really hoping to do a project down in the forest with you guys, I think, but she lost her contact at whatever they're called these days, the government department that runs all the state forests.
Yeah, DELP.
Yeah. Whatever they are
this week.
So that would have been good. Yes, but looking at those things from an environmental point of view is really good, because you don't want to think, oh yeah, I'm going to go and do this improvement project and then have a negative impact. Say if you use some sort of weed mat that, as it deteriorated, it produced methane, that wouldn't be much good.
Yeah.
Because that's going to defeat your purpose anyway.
Yeah.
You're not only going to be using up carbon dioxide, you're going to be releasing methane as well. So it's all a very fine balancing act, isn't it? So at this point, you should be able to come up with some definition of what sustainability means to you. Probably best not to wreck it in the first place. The environment, you mean, Mel? So you don't have to do re-veg. Yeah. That would be good. So it's so hard. Like, I've got an acre of trees out in front of my house, but it's not a full-on re-veg. Still got lots of grass in there. It's not native, but it's better than not having anything. And yeah, I just went and I got some trees from the nearest nursery. Actually, it's over near you, and at Eaglehawk, where I got all my trees from. And they were more for the Bendigo area, but oh well, better than nothing. They're growing really well. Brother-in-law said, "When did you put that in?" I said, "Oh, about 3 years ago." And the eucalypt species are already really tall. Put some eucalypts and some, what else did we put in? We did put some wattles in, but I think that something got into those, some sort of fungus, and yeah, they've got taken over by the others. And there was some melaleucas and something else. And whatever snow, yeah, melaleuca, snow in summer's a melaleuca too, isn't it? Anyway, it's all fun. But yeah, I would have loved to do what you guys did. Go the whole hog.
Didn't feel that fun at the time. Didn't feel that fun at the time.
Yeah, and I think you've got to look at what's going around too. Like, we had no trouble with rabbits or anything like that when our plants were little, which was strange. Didn't lose
more so it was summertime when we were doing it, so.
Oh, a bit hot?
yeah, she's a bit warm.
Mind you, I didn't have to do any of the digging. I subbed that one out. But yeah, we'd put the rippers through the block a couple of years before, probably, just to break the subsoil up a bit. And then just a bit of rotary hoe and a shovel. Okay, I think it's probably time to do the share the screen thing. So this all worked last night. We'll just have a bit of a look at a couple of things and just start this way, and then just to break it up, I've got a video to show you that just sort of it talks about all the things we've been talking about, even though it's not a horticultural one, unfortunately, that haven't been able to find one of them. Okay, so just a reminder, we need to, whenever we're doing a task or making something, we need to, now I need to turn the chat box on again, hang on, it's disappeared. There it is. Doing this changes all my screens. Where's the chat box gone? Not showing up. Doesn't want to show me the chat box.
It doesn't look like you're recording either. Can't see it. Oh, yes, it is. Sorry.
Yeah, it is recording, isn't it?
Yep, I can see that now. Sorry.
Telling me to stop recording. One new message. It's all good, Mel. No, you put your bid in. Okay, so last week we talked about being able to identify everything that we used, right through from the whatever physical things we need to, say, grow a plant, so soil or media, pots, the plant itself, fertiliser, water, but we also have to look at the energy inputs. And if we're going to make any improvements, we also have to be able to measure all those things. So we come up with our list of inputs, and then we have to look at it and say, well, you can do the where does it come from if you want. That was just for us to see the effect that we might have on the environment using different things. Probably the other thing we should do there is the where does it go once we're finished with it. We didn't really talk a lot about that because, well, every time we buy something or make something, there's inputs to make it, then it gets used, and then hopefully it gets used again and has a reincarnated life, some description. But finally, it's got to be disposed of, and that's called cradle to grave if you're looking on the internet for any examples. So from the time that we generate something right through to its end of use, what happens to it along the way, basically. But if we're going to make improvements, we need to measure all those inputs, including, it's really easy to measure the physical things that you put in. Like you can count how many pots you use. You could measure your media by volume or by weight, or by how many wheelbarrow loads, if you like. So long as you're consistent with your start measurement and your end measurement, it really doesn't matter. But for things like water, you need to come up with some sort of measurement for, okay, how much water does it take for me to grow X number of plants? If I do it this way, so say if you did it with just a hose and well, you could look at all the different ways you can water hose, then look at your drip system irrigation and above ground, and drip system irrigation underground if you've got a plot where you're actually in the ground, and see what your water use is. So you could measure water but with a flow meter. So all the water that goes through, particularly if you're pumping, it's really easy to do that. You just have a meter attached to your pump and it tells you how much water's gone through. Or you can do a calculation and say, right, the pump's running at this speed. I know it's pumping this much water per minute or per hour, and I can work out how much water I'm using. Really simply, how long is your tap on for? If you've got your tap turned on with it at 3 turns and you know you fill a bucket up every 30 seconds, well, you can again work out how much water you're using.
Oh, yeah, I've got that here.
Pardon?
Yeah, from irrigation, flow rates and evaporation and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, but I think you still have to include evaporation in your use.
Yeah.
You're using it, even though... Yeah, that's a water cycle thing, and if it evaporates back into the air, at some point it's going to fall as rain again. It just might not be where we are.
Yeah.
So I like to get people to think too, with water, really there's a given amount of water in the world at any given time. It's just in a different place.
Yeah.
So we just have to look after it and make sure that the water we've got is actually suitable to use. And that's unless we get into the extreme where there just isn't any in our area.
Yeah.
But yeah, total amount of water in the world at any given time, whether it's in the ground, in a dam, in the ocean, in the air, it's all much the same. We're not shooting it off into space. Still got to be there somewhere. The other thing that you might want to look at measuring, and as part of your assessment, you do have to pick a project where you can identify inputs and do measurements. So the other part you might want to measure is the end part of it as well. So how much waste are you generating and where does it go?
What is this in the thing?
What are you looking for, Noel?
Yeah, I'm looking for what you're talking about.
It's in the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah. There's a section on wasting your resource. Where is my resource? I didn't even think of that.
Oh, yeah, topic 4, last page.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I don't know what you're actually going to be measuring, it's really hard for me to give a lot in a written resource. I can't find. I'll find it when I get a minute. Don't think and here's some examples of how once you know what your energy use is, you can actually present it to your boss. So you guys at the moment haven't got a workplace, but hopefully in any of your TAFE projects, you'll be looking at something like this. Probably from a dollar point of view, but quite a lot of the time when you can save dollars, well, no, it's the other way around. Putting less stress on the earth quite often will save you some dollars because of the last one, because you just don't generate as much waste. Because we talked last week, you might remember, about whenever we have waste, we're not only throwing away the physical waste, we're also throwing away what? What else are we throwing away if we throw a pot or a bunch of tags that have been misprinted? What else are we throwing away?
Oh yeah, the resource, materials and time and
something else. Yes, we're throwing away the materials. What else are we throwing away? How did we make the tags? What are they made of?
Plastic.
Plastic. So how did we make the plastic?
Oil.
Big energy inputs into plastic, I think.
Yep.
Just take you back to no, we haven't done the video yet. We're going to do the video shortly. Throwaway plastic bottles have got to be the biggest. I mean, they're obviously a very big problem as far as getting rid of waste. How many of them do we see on the side of the road and even in a lot of people's bins? Well, for Shepparton at the moment anyway, going into landfill. Shepparton doesn't have much recycling at the moment because the place burnt down.
Mm.
But it's not just the material, it's all that energy. Yeah, Mel, most of it's going straight to landfill for Shepshire at the minute.
It goes down to Geelong or something, doesn't
it? Yeah, the collection depot out at Grahamvale, Lemnos, whichever bit it is, had a big fire. It's not going there at the moment. Yeah, I don't know, Noel, maybe they did organise something, but at first everything was just going straight to landfill. It does suck. Yeah, we all separate our recycling and they all end up in the same place anyway. Very frustrating. But the point is, whatever energy was used to make that product in the first place is also being thrown away. So all the coal that got burnt and all the byproducts of making electricity that spewed into the air, that was all for nothing because all we did was throw it away. So we really do need to be thinking about what we throw away in a big way. But there's a bit more on waste later. This week, next week. When do we meet again? A couple of weeks, isn't it?
Somewhere. What do we got? It's Friday the 11th.
Yeah, it's 12th, 11th or 12th. I don't know what day it is.
The 8th of September. I've got written down in the afternoon.
Okay, yeah, so it's a few weeks. Have you guys got other things on between now and then?
Well, I don't know if printing's finished or not, but that's due next week, so.
All right. Well, no, we'll leave it. We won't mess
I
up.
don't know.
Yeah. Mel feels like Shepparton Springfield from The Simpsons. That's a little bit over my head. That was a no-watch show for me. Anyway, that's another story. Okay, so once you've got your information, you can present it in any number of different ways. So this is just some ideas. This was an annual electricity use where a particular organisation, and I made this up just to have something to show you, but some measurement had been done at a workplace. So it's a production horticulture type place where they're growing wholesale plants for the wholesale market. So I don't know, how clear is it for you guys? Mel's on a phone. So we've got the electricity used for lighting. Part of the premises are air conditioned. They've got some computers. They've got a hothouse that's got some fans in, and they electrically can open and shut walls. And when I say walls, lift up blinds and things like that. So that's using some power. They've got a recirc pump. They've got some heat beds in the propagation shed and some water features to just as a come in, looks nice, and try and sell their plants to some of the retailers. And there's a potting machine. And so, now it's a while since I did this. Probably need to talk to you about the different colours. I can't remember. The propagation heat beds is the orange, so it's using a fair bit of the power. They could have given me bigger dots, couldn't they? This is the recirculation of the water. The purple one is aircon. Which one? Lighting's green. Oh no, that's the potting machine. That one. This green is the lighting. That's the water feature, so it's not using too much for something that's not really perhaps 100% necessary. It's the red. One of the reds is the hothouse fans, which don't tend to use a lot. A fan doesn't use much more than a light. And the water feature, that darker blue, what's that one? What's that match up with? That one's the computers. Anyway, it doesn't really matter what they are. All I wanted to show you was that whenever you've got some data, you can present it in a way that actually means something. So if I wanted to look at my electricity usage, I can then go to that and say, well, here are my big users, and you might decide to concentrate on the big users and try and get something a bit more efficient. So you might decide that this purple wedge for aircon, well, maybe we can do something with that. Can we get something that's more efficient? But just remembering that the other thing you've got to look at here is your cradle to grave. Is it more environmentally friendly to actually use that one till it can't be used anymore, or find another home for it rather than just throwing it away? Even though it might be that it uses a bit more power than the new updated model. Maybe there's something else that you can do to make it more efficient. Like maybe some insulation, or putting some blinds on the outside of the building so that you don't need to use it running as high. Trying to cool it down some other way. And if you've already got reticulated water, it could even be you look to see if you can use the water as part of the coolant. That would be really thinking outside the square, to actually use the water that you're recirculating to cool things down in your, well, presumably in your office / staff area. Can we perhaps, while that water's moving around, can we use it to take away some of the heat? So, but it is a way that you can just think about it. And I just did that in Excel. Any Excel gurus? I'm by no means an Excel guru.
Nope.
But all I did there was put the information into an Excel table. Nope. Mel says no. I wonder, excuse me. So my Excel table was just a list of all these things in one column. Then in the next column, the usage. And then I just clicked, turn it into a pie chart. And that's how it came up. I think the only thing I had to change was the name of the chart. So Excel's something that if you do need to present your information to somebody else and you want it, and you've got data similar to that, then you can actually use it. You can create a pie chart, you can create a bar graph as easily as what I just said. Okay, what's next? Oh, that's the same thing, just converted into dollars. So the earlier one, that was in kilowatt hours. So that's a measure of electricity. Now with all these things here, it depends how you're wired, how your wiring's set up. Quite often your lighting's on if not on a separate meter, it's at least on a separate part of the meter. And it could be that you can get your Sparky to actually make it so that you can get a reading for lighting. If your air conditioner's a plug-in one, you just put go down to JB Hi-Fi and buy a little meter that goes in the power point before you plug your aircon in, and it'll tell you how much it's using. Same with your computers. The other thing you could do there is just to look in the manuals and get a reading on how much it's expected it would use on average. It's a bit like when you go in to buy white goods, it'll have an average power usage on the label on the front of the appliance. They're just a guide, but it does help when you're buying things, I guess. What else have we got? So same with pumps. Anything you can plug in, you can do that with. Anything that's hardwired, you perhaps need to maybe get some advice on how much it would use for any given time, and then time how long it's on for. And you can then hopefully it'll all add up to roughly what your power bill says. You're not going to get 100% of your power bill doing it this way, because there'll be things that you're using power for that you won't be measuring, like the jug and the fridge and all that sort of stuff that you might have in the tea room. They're using power too, but they're not going to use much. And so to convert it in dollars, you just need to know what your dollar rate for each kilowatt hour of electricity is. So if you've got a boss who thinks in dollars, you would present it in dollars. If you've got a boss who's not so dollar driven, you can say, well, this is how many kilowatt hours we're using. And if we were to change the recirculation pump over to a solar pump, well, you're going to save whichever one it was. Yeah, it looks like it matches that one there, but that sounds a lot. Maybe it's green. No, it's that one. So if we can run our recirculation pump on the water features from solar power, then that's $470, whatever your period is that your information's for. That's the other thing you need to think about, whether this is for a year or whether it's for a month. You could do it every week if you wanted to, but that's probably a bit extreme. To get a base figure, you might say do your measurements. You could do it every day for a month if you really wanted to, and multiply it by the 12 to get an annual figure. But you're probably best to maybe look at it with the sort of industry we're in, maybe February, what would the next one be? February, April, July, and no, that's too close together. Let's go the other way. Let's go January, April, July, and try and make it 4 times a year so that you're measuring it in the different seasons, and that'll give you some information that you can then average over the year. I've lost the chat box. Is Mel saying anything? Why is the chat box not? Comes on when I do that. That's the potty machine, she's saying. Okay, I can't remember now, Mel. It's when I made it up, but just to show you how you can actually present information. And that...
Are we supposed to get this information from, the house?
Well, no, this is at work, and you do have to do a little bit of work to figure it out. But really, it's like the water one, where you figure out what the pump flow is, and you can figure out how much water's going through it.
Yeah.
With electricity, you can look at some things are going to be metered separately anyway, so you can get that information pretty easy just by looking at the main meter or series of meters that you've got at work.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to find out, what if you work outside? You're probably not going to be using a lot of power. You work outside.
Or what if you don't work?
Hmm?
Or what if you don't work?
Oh, you wouldn't use this example probably.
Yeah. So.
But you can measure what your different appliances use in the same sort of way. So you can go and have a look on your washing machine later, and you'll see that it's probably got a kilowatt hour measurement for something. Might be per load, or over time. It'll tell you just on the label, on a sticker on it, unless you've taken the sticker off.
Yeah, I did that.
But and the manual for your washing machine would tell you what the expected power use is as well. Check your grow house. What are you growing, Noel?
I'm not climbing into the roof.
Well, in
No, we
that
don't.
case, you're probably going to have to. One of your big power inputs would be for those fancy lights that you've put up.
No, they're LEDs. They're good for the environment.
So
No,
really
we don't have labels or anything. So I've got to go buy a meter to measure everything.
You might not need to.
Well, there's no other way. Yeah.
Or just because you want to know.
No, and now I've got to. Well, there's no information on anything here. Like,
Okay.
there's no stickers or books or anything.
Well, the other thing you could do, and I noticed this when my dishwasher wore out, and I decided not to get another one. I wasn't using it anymore, so I compared the power bill when I was using the dishwasher, and luckily it was around about when my power was due, and compared the next power bill, and we'd done nothing else different, but the power bill had dropped by about 10 kilowatt hours. So it had to be the dishwasher.
Mm.
Yeah, which I thought was a bit unexpected. And my hot water bill didn't go up or anything like that, because hot water's probably separate on your meter if you've got electric hot water.
We don't even have one of those smart meter things, I don't think. It's just like some old school, I don't know, mouse running on a wheel or something. Whatever it is, it's old and shit.
Yeah, you'll have, well, I suppose it's all done. I can't say where they come and read your meter because they don't anymore. But really, if you're looking at individual appliances, you need to measure it some other way. And the other thing I would just suggest to you here, that anything that's got a light on it, even when it's turned off, is using some power.
Can I do the fire shed across the road because it doesn't have like 8,000 computers and TVs and shit like that?
Yeah, if you want. I don't know what you're thinking about using it for, but yeah, if you want it doesn't have. I'm not specifying where you have to do this.
Oh yeah, sweet. I'm gonna do that.
Okay, so this is just about. I have to tell you how you can measure it and present it. Okay, so this is the table that I use. There you go. So this is the actual table. Then it's for a year. So this is what my Excel spreadsheet looked like. List of things, the kilowatts and the dollars. And all I did there was decide on a value for my 1 kilowatt of electricity and put it in as a formula, and it did all the calculations for me. And that's how I generated those 2 pie graphs using that information. Looks a bit more interesting and tells people a bit more, presented as a chart rather than just giving them a heap of numbers to look at. Does it have, Noel needs a security. Does it have to be, I don't know which task you're talking about.
I don't know what which one you're talking about. Is it
This is just information because I have to tell you how you can measure inputs.
Is it for the audit?
Yeah.
We're going to do an audit at some point, but we'll have to pretend we're at TAFE to do the audit.
Oh, so we're going to do that together?
Yeah, we're going to do that together.
Oh, good. Good, yep.
All right, so this is just how you measure stuff.
This is just how you would measure. If you've got power inputs to your business.
You had me worried about bloody measuring the freezer and shit.
Oh, no. Not unless it fits one of the assessment tasks.
You mean assessment task 3, a report, a completion of a report for your employer. Write it in complete sentences using paragraphs.
Let me look.
Progress against resource efficiency targets.
Task 1. Oh, this is all put together with the staple in the wrong corner. That's right.
Yeah, it's backwards.
Yeah, it's not backwards. It's just that the paper came out the opposite way on the photocopier. And so it put it in.
It feels backwards.
Oh, I fixed mine.
Okay, assessment task 3 is just a memo saying what your one of the questions must ask you to do some sort of evaluation of a task.
Progress against. It's really confusing.
Yeah, there'll be no. Let me look at it when we have a break, and I'll tell you which question that task 3 refers to, rather than me confusing you.
We pass that along, Tom.
But it'll be, you choose a task of some description. What are all the inputs? And how can you be more efficient doing that particular task? That's what your memo will be about. What have we already done?
Gone insane.
Oh, okay. She's joking. Okay, so that's a bit on measurement anyway. So, I mean, anything you can count's easy to measure. Or if you're talking about waste, you do it by what volume of container you're taking up. But we talk more about waste towards the end of this. We've already started on talking about some of the environmental type hazards, that chemical spill we mentioned earlier. That's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Still get too many of those. What happens when a fuel truck tips over, or a tanker carrying anything tips over? It doesn't matter what it's carrying. Could be carrying milk. Tell you what, a few tens of thousand litres of milk is a huge environmental hazard.
It could get in the waterways and pollute them.
Yep. Damages the ground, and of course it stinks.
Yeah, it goes off and yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we mean by environmental hazard. Or it could be something really big like the Exxon Valdez, where it spilt a heap of oil and killed all the water life for miles around it. That was in
the American one. No, that was Florida, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's same place.
Yeah, the BP one.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
There's been there's been different ones of those over time. What other sort of? We're talking about the first two now, aren't we? But certainly, if you were to have a fertilizer spill, that could be a big issue too, couldn't it? What would that do if, for some reason,
Beirut
brand friendly, isn't it? Not when they spill it. What if we did have a fertilizer spill? What would we need to do? Anything that's not meant to be there is not good. What if it got into a local waterway? What would it do? Chem spill at a golf course in Sydney. Yeah. What did they do?
Right.
Don't know that one.
It's only Sydney, who cares? And
they didn't contain it. Yeah, if you don't contain it, it's going to get into the groundwater and into the local watercourses, isn't it? Killed thousands of fish, yeah. And from time to time, I wonder sometimes, how up around Nathalia at one stage, they had a lot of dead fish and nobody really knew why.
Yeah.
Broken Creek, I think. Broken Creek.
Yeah.
So potentially that could have been fertiliser. Because when fertiliser gets into water, it uses up the oxygen. Now, we don't think of fish as needing oxygen, but they need the water that they live in to have oxygen in it. So if we spill something into the water that uses up that oxygen, then the wildlife's going to die. Or if we put something in the water that perhaps knocks it all out of balance and we get extra algae grow. Well, we get that blue-green algae, don't we?
Yeah. What was that fire brigade training ground it's toxic now?
Near Ballarat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, where they're burning chemicals and it's just killed the water.
Yeah, it was their training ground and they were using all their chemicals and storing them and probably having some spills. And yeah, it's both an environmental and a people safety hazard, that one.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called. And everyone's getting cancer and shit like that from it.
Yeah, well, that's the people damage side of it, isn't it? But imagine it's also doing damage to the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how that sort of thing can start off a real wasteland.
Oh, it already is, yeah.
Yeah. The reason I've got storm water up there isn't so much because it's an environmental hazard, but because we need to protect it if we do have a spill. So if at our horticultural business or we might be an allied business, we might be providing chemicals to the horticulture industry. If we were to have a spill at our storage site, we would need to make sure that we can close off our stormwater entry drains. Okay, so if we're in town or in a built-up area, we're certainly going to have access to stormwater. So we need to protect that. How can we do that? How can we stop a liquid spill, say, from getting into the stormwater, from moving around?
What, just day to day, or?
Yeah, you've had a spill.
Yeah, oh, yeah, they put those barriers around the stormwater.
Around the stormwater inlet?
Around the pit things, yeah.
Yep, you could do that. So you're protecting the entry. You're stopping things from getting in there. Likewise, you can get your spill kit out and put your pillows around the spill. Depends how big it is and how fast it's moving.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to have in your spill kit something that you can just tip on it to stop it from flowing.
Yeah, like a sawdust or something, and then they just absorbs it and then scrape it up. And
yeah, we tend not to use sawdust. Sawdust used to be the go-to, but the problem is it's flammable already. So if we put it on a chemical that's also flammable, then we're creating something that's going to be a fire risk.
Yeah, also there's that stuff that's like kitty litter or something. I don't know what it's called. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No reason why you couldn't go and grab some kitty litter to have in your spill kit. It would work just fine. Of course, you've possibly got some media that you can use. I mean, you don't want anything, again, that's going to be highly flammable. So not too much tinder in it. But, just something to stop it from flowing. And then you can get into the hard part of cleaning it up with a shovel. But it is really important that we protect those stormwater drain inlets. Google protecting stormwater drain inlets if you're really interested, because these days you can get ones that are made out of a silicon type substance that you just throw over the inlet and it takes the shape of whatever the inlet is, and you get a pretty good seal. So rather than just pillows around it that once they get sodden, they're sodden, but these silicon ones, the chemical just flows straight over the top, which is a bit interesting. Trade waste, you might have some sorts of trade waste. It's really going to be if you say, in your instance, a trade waste could be lots of plants that nobody's bought. Can you just go and take them to the tip?
What plants? No, you just drive out of town and dump them on the side of the road, don't you?
Oh, okay.
Like everyone else in town.
Okay, so composting's good. I'm just looking at Mel's. And so she's composting and then adding to the soil on her veggie kit patch by the sound of that. What we don't want to do is for any exotics to end up in the bush. So anything that's not native, which can happen, you've just got to look between Shep and Marootna and how many non-native plants there are in there on the side of the causeway. They've got to have come from somewhere. Some of it will be birds. The birds have dropped seeds, but some of it's got to be because people have dumped stuff. So that in effect is a form of trade waste. We need to make it so that, just like any other place that generates a lot of waste, make it so that it can go into the environment without doing damage. So really we're back to Mel's suggestion that we compost it. And for the life of me, I don't know why more nurseries don't have a compost area. Just don't know. I think it'd be money for jam, wouldn't you?
Would that be like a disease thing or disease prevention sort of thing?
What, not to compost?
No, if they had compost on site.
No, if you're making your compost properly, it should get hot enough to kill off any diseases.
Yeah.
That's perhaps
Okay,
more a question
just
for
thought.
Tommy and
Yeah.
Lee. But yeah, I'm still struggling with making compost. I've been trying for a long time. And you've got to get everything just right and really be at it all the time. It's no good leaving it for a month or 6 weeks or 8 weeks and going back and expecting it to be right. It takes work.
Yeah.
You can't just chuck everything in a pile. But yeah, we certainly don't want our live vegetable type matter, and I don't just mean veggies when I say that, pile it up in no dig beds. Yeah, I've tried that too, Mel. I like that idea. One stage I was just had a trench out in the veggie patch and I'd tip it in and cover it over, and that'd be next season's veggie plot. No flies, no insects, no smell, and the soil's improved. Yeah, that'd be good. Anyway, so that's your horticultural form of trade waste. And the other one I was thinking of was perhaps if for some reason you had, this was perhaps in a hydroponic example, and for some reason you had to get rid of a heap of fertiliser-laden water. You can't just let it go down the drain, because we're back to the fertiliser contamination of the environment if we do that. So really you're going to have to come up with a way to use up the fertiliser that's in that water before you can let it go to the environment. Maybe grow some more plants. It's not my area. I'm not sure what you would do with that, but I can definitely say that you can't just pull the plug and let it go down the drain. Not without doing something to it. And for you guys, the last one, it's going to be so small, you're really just not going to have atmospheric emissions, because all your atmospheric emissions really are going to be wherever you buy your electricity from. And with your vehicles, that would be the only other one. Not likely you're going to be running things on a diesel motor. Certainly if you were, that'd be something you could look at, because yeah, diesel gives off lots of emissions, which is what we're talking about there. So do you get the difference? There's one more slide on this. Maybe one day cars will run on compost. Why not? Methane? Yep. Or waste. That would be good. A way that we can actually use up our waste for something that we need. Maybe one day we'll have to when we've run out of everything else. So the issues with these environmental, really it's contamination. So we're back to pollution. So chemical spills and product waste can damage waterways and also the soil. Really, you know, we sort of think about water being contaminated, but it's also soil can be contaminated by liquid waste. Chemical spills, lots of damage, but again, just to reiterate, product spills can also do that damage. Soil degradation, you guys would be really familiar with, I would expect. Free clearing. Had a post come across my Facebook page. What's soil? As in the earth crust. Oh, you haven't got any, haven't you? No, this is good, Mel. At least I know you're there and you're thinking about it. There was a Facebook post came up of some lovely waterfalls up near Eildon on Snobs Creek, and looked all very nice. And then in the next few frames, they showed how there's some clear felling going on. And that was the whole point of the post, was to get people to say this is no good. And yeah, so if that clear felling goes ahead, what's going to happen to our little creek? It's coming down from high up.
Erosion.
Lots of erosion, yeah. Lots of erosion. Because it's the trees and the grasses that are holding the soil together, nothing else. And then there won't be any soil, Mel. And of course, you can also overuse your soil, which is why we need to be putting the compost back in our veggie patches. Because if you don't, you just end up with something that's so fine, doesn't hold water anymore. Doesn't hold water, and it's fine particles, but it's not clay. So, real conundrum. I've got a patch out in my veggie garden that I'm really working on trying to get some compost back into and some humus. Used to just put cow manure in there, but I haven't got any cows anymore. Anyway, we could contaminate the atmosphere with our exhaust emissions, also electricity generation, and if there's anything else that you're doing that's pumping gases or particles into the air. And of course, we've got the environmental issues of using up fossil fuels as well. So I hope now you can actually see the difference between what an environmental hazard is as compared to a resource that is using it is having an effect on the environment. It doesn't have to be a great drama for us to actually be affecting the environment. Yeah, these sort of things, the oil spills where we see penguins all covered in oil, yeah, that's an environmental hazard. And it's not the usual thing that happens, isn't it? But at the same time, that ship that's running around the oceans transporting whatever it is having an impact on the environment as well because it's using up fuel. Yeah?
Oh, the Rainbow Warrior.
Rainbow Warrior, they were the ones
the
that...
Greenpeace nutters.
Peoples.
They bought an oil tanker, an old oil tanker, and then just go round and round and round the oceans pissing off whalers and shit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and the French did something to it. Did they sink it?
Should have sunk it.
I think they did sink it. Because these days, if you're from New Zealand, you don't need a passport to go to France because France is payback for the damage they did to the Rainbow Warrior.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but
we think of the oil spill that the ship has as being a big problem, but not so much about all the particles it's belching into the air just to move around. Still having an impact on the environment just by transporting whatever it is that gets transported. Anyway, that's the end of that environmental hazards topic. So I think even though it's only just 10 o'clock, we might have a quick break because the next bit's legislation.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Oh, does that? Oh, did I turn the microphone off?
Not past 12 o'clock. We'll probably be finished a bit earlier than that, Anne. Is that all right?
Yeah, I've just got kids homeschooling, so...
Yeah, I could see
I'm in and out a bit, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. You're doing a good job.
Get the ruler out, Anne.
I'll just put it on mute and roast everybody.
No, we want to hear it too.
No, you're doing
all right, coffee time.
Coffee, yep. Where's my book?
Ugh. Something the Rainbow Warrior. You know that Greenpeace ship that you see on the news heaps? Yeah, they used to like go after whalers and oil and stuff like the hippies. Yeah, someone sold it.
Oh my god. You don't see me together. You have some friends from National Broadband Anglia.
National Broadband Network.
Yeah, we've been trying to get in touch with you lately.
The no business network. Just say, yeah, our phone runs off. Was it? Web call or something.
Yeah.
The internet one, that's the home page. So yeah, no, the internet doesn't make any, so you can't get hold.
Yeah.
Yay, we've got the legislation next.
Sounds fun. Oh my god.
What area?
Okay, so that's fairly broad if we're going to do a new garden with some irrigation.
That is pretty broad.
Got
Maybe we could just
this job.
choose one. God, don't go away.
If we were going to get all the things together that we needed before we start, what would we have in our kit?
So irrigation and planting out a garden bed.
Yep, that's the task.
Yep.
Okay.
So all the pipelines and clamps and joiners.
So if I put, I'm just filling this in as we go. Pipes and joiners, they're really going to all be the same sort of thing. Anything else on the irrigation side of it?
Well, it's going to be water.
Yeah, that.
Or is that just... Don't put that in there.
Do you use glue at all?
No.
They don't glue
No,
together?
it's just your... No. They clamp together.
Joiners hold
usually.
everything together?
Yep.
Okay. What about, and does it just go straight into the garden bed, or does it need footings, or how does that work?
No, just... Well, the one I'm thinking of is just like a drip feeding thing. So it's basically under the...
And the mulch.
Yeah, that's the word. That's the word I was looking for.
Mulch?
Yeah,
That's another
pegs.
input.
Mel's right, pegs.
What was that, Anne?
Mel said pegs.
Yep. Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
I put valves as well because you've got the valve at the top and then the that pressure release valve at the bottom and the control device thing.
Okay, how are we controlling our irrigation system?
So hold on, where is this going? This is going, input is the irrigation. And then this is all the resources that we're going
all
through
the
now.
things that you need to do the job.
Oh, resources. Yeah, I
Okay.
in the wrong column.
So, I've got it headed
irrigation.
input.
Resources.
The resources used part is going to be where they come from.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So the input will be where we're writing pipes, joiners, valves, pegs, yada yada.
Yep.
Okay.
The control device thing like that, Mel.
Yeah, what is that called? Can't remember.
It doesn't
Flow
really
valve.
matter. How's it powered?
Flow control valve.
Is there any electricity, I guess is what I'm asking?
It depends on the system, but yeah, usually a timer.
Oh, meter timer.
Yeah, well, there's something else.
Yeah. I think the one, is a battery operated timer. Good.
I would have thought it'd have to have some sort of power unless you're going to solar power it.
Yeah.
What's a casing that you put in the ground? Mel's put up.
Casing.
Yeah, what casing?
Like a box.
Like a box.
Is that for the controller, Mel?
Ah,
So there's a few things there just with the irrigation part of it. And then you're going to have a shovel. Yeah, or not?
my irrigation. Oh, yeah. Tools.
Slash tools, yeah, because the resources used for, I'm trying to group the things together that are going to use the same resources, and I've even written pegs down twice. Good one. So that you can think about where they've actually come from and what sort of natural resources we're using up. And if there's any,
so like the plastic pipes,
yeah,
and joiners, yeah, the metal in the valves. I don't know if there's metal pegs.
yep, there's got to be some metal there somewhere as well, I would expect.
And water would be used to make the plastic, right?
Yep. I mean, it's a bit how long's a piece of string and how far do you go with this? Or do we just want to stop and say, well, plastics, they've come from petrochemicals. They've got other things in them too, but it depends what sort of plastic it is. But mostly it's a waste product from petrochemicals and petrol refining. Where we've got metals.
So copper and all that sort of thing.
Yep, that's all got to be smelted.
Copper, rubber.
Rubber's not a metal though.
No, but it's still got to be processed and stuff.
Yep.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, so there's going to be some I'm just going to put that in with the valve and the timer. That we've got some rubber there somewhere. Washers, that sort of thing. Rubber could be synthetic or it could be natural rubber. If it's synthetic, it's been made just out of chemicals. Or as we said the other day, if it's natural rubber, it's treated sap from a particular tree. What about if you've got a battery, what have you got in there?
Acid.
It depends what sort of battery. If it's like a car battery, yeah, it'll have some acid in it.
Acid, metal, plastic.
Lithium.
Yeah, lithium was the one I was fishing for. Because again, our move across to lithium batteries has got to put strain on the amount of lithium that we've got available to us, and really, that one really has to be looked after. It's not a hugely common element.
Can't see you, Tracy. You've gone really quiet too.
She's driving through a tunnel.
I'm just going to unplug everything and plug it back in again. And now it's telling me it's changed back.
I can hear you now.
Is that better sound
Don't
too?
get a take for Texas.
Pardon? Hopefully this will hold up. Hopefully, because I want to, maybe we'll see. 10:30. I've got a video that runs for about 20 minutes, but we might put that off till next time and do some activities, I think. Okay, so
Yep.
Lithium's not an inexhaustible resource, so really important that where it's used, we come up with a way to keep using it or recover it. So we've also got metal in our tools. So again, the old conundrum here, do we buy good tools that are going to last for a while, like a shovel we can sharpen, or do we go and buy one we use for 6 months and throw away?
Like a good one.
You want the good one?
Yeah.
Yep, do it once, do it right.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good move. Certainly less of an impost on the environment. Might cost you a bit more in dollars to start with. But, yeah, certainly better for the environment. And then you don't end up with a shed of useless shovels that you don't really know what to do with. Where do they end up? Those useless things?
In the back of the shed. In the back of the shed, usually. Saying I'll get to that one day.
Yeah, or throw it away. And
yeah.
And Mel busts one from Bunnings in a day. Gee, you must do some digging.
That's on a day off.
And I mean, you can also look at the different handles you might put in your tools. You can get fiberglass handles versus wooden handles. Or if you like my husband, probably even got one in the shed that's just got a bit of pipe shoved in as a handle. Not real good to use, but it was probably a stopgap fix at one stage. What about our mulch? What's the resource in mulch?
It's usually pine. I don't know, the one we used to pay for is pine bark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are leftovers from milling and stuff like that.
I like that idea, so long as that's what it is. How much of our...
Yeah, that's what...
Yeah, go on.
That's what we were told it was anyway.
Yep. I mean, it could be anything. I think this one came up last week where sugar cane's a popular mulch at the moment. Or sugar cane mulch. Which is all good, except it's travelled 2,500 kilometres in some cases to get to us. So there's an impost on the environment of that one. So that's the sort of things we need to be thinking about. So hopefully our mulch maybe could have some of our compost in it. Or it could have been some prunings that you clipped out of the backyard. Sometimes I wonder,
Like Mel said.
Mel said. Yeah, chip natives from trees and things, yeah. So how do you chip them though, Mel? Okay, so Mel's using her weeds as well, so long as you get them in time before they seed, that'd work. The only reason I threw that one in is I want you to also think about, it's great, you've got a pile of prunings from whatever. If you're going to chip them with a chipper, you've got to factor in some energy, whether it's electricity or whether it's diesel. It doesn't matter, it's still energy for chipping. Unless you're going to do it some other way.
Transporting the machinery.
We haven't got any machinery yet, but yeah,
the cheapest machinery, isn't it?
We've got to have some transport in there regardless. We've got to get to the place. So we're going to use some fuel. So we could have a kangaroo or something like that, I guess, depending how big the job is. I'm not sure what Mel means there, but
that's okay.
It would be the same for all of them.
Scribble.
In terms of effort and transport and all that sort of shit, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for all our machinery, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got the same sort of inputs.
So can we put down in the input just transportation in general? So that'll cover getting to and from the site and the products getting to and from and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Then it just sort of blankets the whole lot. We don't have to
that's
keep putting it in.
We're just thinking about the effect that we're having on the environment and then looking to see if there's any way we can reduce it. So maybe if you are using a Kanga, you might just say, okay, it's going to use fuel. The reason I'm sort of isolating out the one that you might use for moving stuff around, or even something that you put a bit of a rotary hoe or something on, is it a big enough job to warrant that, or should we just, you know, get out there with a shovel and not have those emissions going into the air and using the fuel and that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
But this is work. You're not playing around. You need to get it done quickly, so we don't want to take that away either. We haven't got any plants yet. Do we want weed mat? Oh, that'd be a choice between mulch and weed mat, wouldn't it? Or is it both?
No, you can put weed matting and then mulch on top.
Where do we get the weed mat from? What is it?
There's one we used for re-veg was jute, I think it's called.
Okay. Which is?
I'll Google it.
It's recycled
I don't know.
material. I can't remember what. It's all mashed up together.
Is jute from
Coconut
a
or something,
plant?
isn't it? Like peat or something.
I remember.
Is jute from what plant?
I remember Erin saying something about materials, fabrics and stuff.
I've got a feeling that jute / hessian is true jute is made from a jute plant.
It was a Hessian-y sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mel will know. She knows a lot about him.
She's just got it. No, she hasn't made a comment on this bit. Certainly, if you can recycle something, it would be good. Oh, Mel's Googling. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Googling it too.
Well, here's one. I've got a, how big is it? I think it's a 5 metre by 5 metre square sage shale that's old and it's now got a couple of tears in it. Could I use that as a weed mat?
You could, but it wouldn't be good for it, would it? Because it's plastic, basically.
No, it's a canvas. It's not canvas. I mean, the rain still comes through it. I'd have to have a look to see. If it is plastic, you probably wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's just like I think it's probably just called shade cloth. But yeah, you're right. It could be anything. I'm more thinking of putting it under some gravel. Try and stop the weeds from coming through there, but not to grow stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to think up a use for it rather than just throwing it away. So what do we? Oh, this is for under the mulch. Mel's suggesting old clothes, sheets and stuff, and cardboard. Well, yeah, we could use that up.
Newspaper.
Yeah. So when we're looking at those sort of things, our resources are actually things that we were going to throw away anyway.
Yeah.
So that's probably, it's better than them going to landfill. And it's what we would call a recycled resource. And really not having any new effect on what we're doing, unless as it breaks down, it creates a gas. That would be the only thing. So
it'd have to be a natural fibre clothing and stuff like that.
Well, if
natural
it's
fibre
matting. It's nylons and stuff, it's not going to break down.
Yeah.
Or our Coke bottle jumpers. I wouldn't use those.
There we go, jute matting. Yeah, it's coir peat moss stuff. It's those ones that go around, like the squares that go around council plantings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That brown, yeah. It's
well, if it's coir, it's from
coconuts.
Coconuts.
Yeah.
So again, there's lots of more natural type materials out there. If we can access them without too many travel miles, they are a really environmentally friendly way to do it. What's Mel put up? Long, soft, shiny bast fibre that can be spun into coarse, strong threads. Okay. Good finding.
Yeah, with Wikipedia.
But again, you'd want to know where that's going to come from, just so that you can judge how far you're bringing it. And then see if
Yeah,
you've
you
got a
can get it.
local alternative anywhere.
Yeah, you can get it in big long rolls, or you can get it in little squares.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
maybe get the squares and then spray around it or something.
Okay, so
Spray
is there
seed
something
around
else
it.
that we need for our job? Do we need some pre-emergent spray? It's up to you guys.
Yeah.
Herbicide, weedicide, whatever you want to call it.
Should we try and not use those?
Yep. Yep, you could try and not use those. You've still,
Just-
Mel's saying no.
Just focus on clearing the site first, and then using like good weed mat and mulch.
Yep.
To block it out.
Maybe actually perhaps trying to, maybe a pre-water to try and get any seeds that are there to sprout so that you can get rid of them.
Clay breaker, something like that, if it's whatever the soil's like, I suppose.
So maybe a soil treatment.
Soil treatment sort of covers it, doesn't it? The whole lot.
Yeah, whether it's gypsum or whatever you might want to incorporate. This is the sort of process that you would go through though and say, okay, what am I actually going to be putting into this job?
Good boy.
And where am I going to get it from?
I need to figure out what your maths is.
And as you say, it depends what you're starting with too.
Pick that up. You've done good.
So we've got a fair bit of plastic in our irrigation system and maybe a bit of metal. To run the whole thing, got a battery.
I just thought about edging for the garden. Is it already existing or what?
I'd say not. It's up to you though. Yeah, but what sort of garden edging are we going to use? That's a good point.
I saw I went for a walk the other day and there's this dude who's got all these little garden beds with just old branches as the edging. I thought that looked pretty cool.
Okay.
It wasn't really like enclosing a lot, but it was just to define those edges and, you know, hold a bit of the mulch up in there, and it looked good.
Mm. I did some with sleepers a while ago, and we took them all out because we found that the sleepers were attracting termites.
Oh, bugger.
Yeah, it was all bugger because they got into the house. I got a phone call at work one day and husband says, "Oh, we're renovating." I said, "What are you talking about? We're not renovating." He said, "Yes, we are." You know, I just put my elbow through the wall and behind it was all, eaten out with white ants. And interestingly, the bulk of our house is 100 years old this year. And it was only the new parts that the termites got in. They didn't like
Half the power just went out.
old red gum. Okay, and Mel's looking at also, you know, is there things that we can put in to also cut down labour? But yeah, edging could be anything, couldn't it? If I'm thinking back now to some of the probably 60s, 1960s, 70s, 80s gardens where we used a lot of concrete edging. And that would be a comparison with that and the environmental impact, I guess, concrete versus some sort of wood. I'd go the wood all the time, I think, as far as environmental effect goes, because making concrete's got a huge effect on the environment. Just the chemicals that have to be combined together and the amount of energy that's got to go in to make concrete means that it has a large environmental impact. So there's some.
So this is where.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, this is where it'd be easier if we could say be at TAFE and pick a spot, and because there's so many variables for different places.
But what I'm getting you to see here is, we want to edge our garden.
Yeah.
But we can edge it in a way that uses up a lot of resources, or we can do it in a way that minimises the use of natural resources.
Yeah.
Just by what we choose. I mean, if you can come up with an edging that's all, say, recycled, even timber. You know, it used to be not timber, corrugated iron used to be a fence, and we've cut it into strips and used that. Yeah, it looks yuck, but Mel's looking at old bricks. And certainly, I'd say yes if it was old bricks, but if you're wanting to do it with new bricks, then you would need to think about the energy inputs, because it takes a lot of energy to make a brick. Excellent, yeah. We haven't even got to our plants yet, have we? So if we were looking at this garden that we're going to create, really, I think it's telling us that most of the environmental impact is going to come in the setting up rather than the actual plants themselves. And then it comes back to, well, do we want to use native plants for the area, which would be my preference, or do we want to bring something in from elsewhere, which is going to have travel miles on it? And where are we going to get the plants from?
Yeah, locally sourced
Good,
natives. Yeah.
But even Sam, a lot of your retail nurseries, they'll be bringing plants in from all over the place.
Yeah, you'd have to go to somewhere like, you know, a smaller one that specialises in local stuff, like the Goldfields Re-Veg Nursery here in Bendigo. They're all local species. And, yeah.
Or that arboretum that we got dragged to last year.
Where'd you go?
The Euroa Arboretum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all locally sourced and produced.
I'm trying to think of the name of the other one. There's one out in... Oh, doesn't matter. I can't think of it.
There's one in Echuca. There's the seed bank. There's a few. There
used to be one in Tatura too that actually generated a lot of... that grew on their own seeds. They had a tree group. It was a volunteer setup where they just propagated lots of stuff that was native to the area. Went out and collected their own seeds. And edging made from old tyres is another one. Well, again, we're using something that would have been thrown away otherwise. Seen some interesting arty type work made from old tyres. One of the guys on my way to work, when I get to drive to work, he made a Christmas tree out of old tyres. So just different sized tyres stacked on top of each other and then painted green, and at Christmas time he decorates it. It's different.
So for the plants, pots, media and water?
Yeah, well, you've got to grow them on unless you're going to put seeds in this garden, don't you?
Yeah, well, I reckon we're buying plants that are already, you know, established. Well, not established, but, you know, seedlings.
Yep. I reckon too. So...
Hand tools.
What was hand tools?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, are they going to have? They're going to have the same inputs as your shovel, though, aren't they?
Yeah, I suppose.
So perhaps that just goes in that box there. And again, it's the, you know, do we get good ones or do we get ones that we're going to use for a few weeks and throw away? So your plants and seedlings will have all the things that are in task 1, or the first example, potting up plants. And the things that might go into actually getting that plant. The indirect inputs there are for the person growing up the plant. So that's on page 10. If you're buying the plants, you're not going to probably have a bulk storage bin for media or anything like that. But that's in the background. So really our pot is going to have the plant, the pot, the growing media. It'll have used up some water, might have some water saving granules in it, whatever they are. That might be something to investigate. And then it'll have a label, and they'll have used something to put the plant in the pot. Whether if it's a potting machine, well, there's some more inputs.
The last one would be just maintenance and ongoing maintenance and stuff, wouldn't it?
This is where you've got to decide where you're going to stop.
Yeah. I'm going to stop because I'm running out of room. But
Yeah, I've pretty much out of room too.
Well, don't we just build the garden and then the people who paid us to do it look after it after that?
Yeah, so I guess in your thinking, you could go, yeah. Yeah, Mel's filled her page up too by the sound of it. I guess in your thinking is, can we design something that isn't going to need a lot more inputs once we've designed it? So obviously it's going to need water and some replacement plants, but are we building something that isn't going to need, say, new edging in 3 years' time? Might need some new mulch. So could we make a choice there that, is there some mulches that are going to be around for longer than others, or do they all need to be topped up regularly? See, I don't know that bit.
Once the plants get to a sustainable thing, like they've outcompeted the weeds and stuff like that, you can just leave it. So
it's really about conserving water after that, isn't it?
yeah. Like the weak ones will die off anyway, and
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with you. Once you've got a dominant plant there, it uses up all the water and all the nutrients anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea behind the overplanting for the dead loss and all that sort of thing. So
okay.
30% or something like that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we had a lot of cypress around our house.
I need my phone, please.
And I couldn't get anything to grow under them. Not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
They were quite well established. They were big trees. Anyway, one storm they all blew out. So there was 3 of them disappeared. Yeah, they do change the pH, you're right. But it was more that they were absolutely using up all the nutrients and nothing would grow. Anyway, now that's quite productive, that area. And all the time I spent trying to get grass to grow out there so the kids would have somewhere to play.
What sort of trees were they?
They were a big cypress tree, the tree version, not the hedge version. My husband's grandfather planted them thinking that they would be a hedge, but they were the wrong variety for a hedge.
A vertical hedge.
Yeah. Yeah, one of them fell on our car and the other 2 ended up in the backyard, took out a veranda post, and it was a doozy of a storm though.
Maybe you're right, firewood.
Much better now. Actually, we buried a lot of it. We had to fill a dam in at the time, so it went in there because it didn't make good firewood. Yeah, it was all splintery and... Anyway, if it had happened now, my husband probably would have made something out of it because he's a bit into that at the moment. But anyway, it was a long time ago. I think we've got all our inputs for pretty much for our job. So we're saying that perhaps it really doesn't matter what sort of mulch we put down, so long as it's something that is going to be there until the plants get established. So we're going to need lots of plants, so that'll mean lots of pots. What are we doing with our pots once we've planted the plants?
Cleaning them out and recycling them, or reusing them, or returning them to the nursery.
Yeah, so that perhaps is an agreement or a relationship that you want to have with wherever you buy your plants from. That perhaps they are happy to take them back.
Yeah. Same thing with like your mulch and stuff, like the big bags or whatever. I suppose you could arrange to return them. And
if you buy it in bags, and that's something else you would look at. If it's a really big job, you mightn't buy it in bags.
Yeah, well, I mean those big bags, they're like the big, I don't know what, like the bags that are in the Hort shed at William or
bulk bag, I think they call it.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Yeah. And it also could be that it's going to be trucked in. Or you fill a trailer up, or whatever works for the job. But the less you've got to throw away at the end, really, the better.
Yeah.
Or like you said, try and get people to take things back. But sometimes that'll happen. Other times I'll say, no, it's your problem now, mate.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's worth looking into and just seeing
Yeah.
what you can do.
Yeah, it comes up in the book in a minute, in strategy. So yeah, we try not to buy anything that we're just going to throw away.
Oh, we have no.
Yeah. Okay, so once you've got your list of inputs, then we go. There is an example on page 2 how you might monitor
No, that was
use.
the book before.
So your components become,
We never did anything on it. Mouth.
and then you're looking for how you can measure it. And that number 1 is quantity. But this one's perhaps the harder
And
one.
this one we've got to compare the script
Okay,
to
in our example.
Sorry, there's a lot of background noise. I'm having trouble hearing what you're saying.
I don't know where it's coming from.
You there?
Noel.
Oh, it was Noel.
Someone else in Noel's house.
Was that me?
Yeah, I can hear it
No,
now.
they just. Yeah.
Now I
Yeah,
can't.
it's gone now. It's you, Noel.
Okay, when you set out to measure things, it can be quite difficult. So if it's something like pots, yeah, you can just count them. Maybe if you got really technical, you could say, okay, am I better off buying, if it's seedlings, am I better off with this size tray or this size tray so that I've got less plastic to throw away at the end or trying to get rid of? But you've solved your problem if you've got someone to take it back and reuse it. Edging, the shape of the garden bed, as to how much edging that you use, that might be a bit of a trade-off as well. The height of your edging would certainly reduce the impact because you've got less material. But it's still got to work. If you needed an 8-inch edging, because 3 inches of it, I should be talking in centimetres, shouldn't I? If you've got let's say a 20 centimetre edging, and that's like that because it has to go 5 centimetres into the ground. Well, it has to go 5 centimetres into the ground. Otherwise, it's going to fall over. But, pegs you can obviously count for your irrigation system. Can we look at how much piping we're using? Can we come up with the most efficient configuration of getting water to all our plants, but using the least amount of pipe? Now Noel's gone under the chat because he's got background noise. What else do we need to measure? No. The mulch part, how much mulch?
I've only got pump in my water part.
Sorry, what was that, Anne?
As my water input, I've only got the resources used as a pump. I can't think of anything else apart from
the pump's actually an input. The resource used is water. Water is actually an input and a resource.
Oh,
okay.
I'll swap that around.
Yep. So again, you're looking for a way to have this garden, and over time it's going to be the most water efficient garden we can get. So that comes back to your irrigation system, doesn't it? And that might be what you put to the person who's putting in this garden. I've looked at your site and the size of your garden and how much water your plants are going to need. So that's assuming that we're not going to change the plants. So it becomes, okay, I'm going to recommend that you go with, not with a drip irrigation, but the underground irrigation, because it's such a big area. It's a new area. We can put the system in, whatever they call it, when you put all the pipes in with the holes in, and we direct the water to where the plants are. Yeah, one's above ground and one's below ground.
Yeah, I like the below ground idea.
Yeah, so do I, but you can really only do it with a new bed, can't you?
Yeah.
But that way you can actually really target where your water's going to go to. And is that going to reduce the likelihood for weeds if we do it that way?
Possibly, because you're only directing the water where it needs to go, and so
Yeah.
the spaces in between aren't as wet. But then you've got those weeds that don't really need a lot of resources to grow.
And of course, you've got rain.
Yeah.
Weeping hose drippers. Noel seems to be our irrigation person. So that would be a way that you're going to have to measure it. You're going to say you're going to use this much less water if you go with this irrigation system versus an overhead, not overhead, but a spray irrigation system. To sell it to your client, you're going to need the measurements. That makes sense. And once you've done it once, you won't need to do it for every situation. You'll know the greater efficiencies that you're going to get with one system over another system. But that's got to go in as a measurement. So water's always going to be measured in litres or kilolitres if it's a really big garden. Because remember that the person that you're talking to has to understand it too. What's this one? I don't know what a wobble tee is.
Those old sprinklers that wobble and spin.
I think. Okay. Yeah. You lose a percentage of your water to evaporation.
Yeah. A big percentage.
Yeah. Giant pivot. That's another sprinkler, isn't it?
Oh, did I get it wrong? Did I?
According to Mel.
I don't know.
Look at the new ones. Some of them are fun to actually use as recreation, though. So of the things that we've got in our input list, you could certainly do some sort of a measurement on the amount of pipe and joiners you're going to use, and that would be reduced through design. Same with pegs. The mulch and the weed mat, not so much. Yes, you'd have a measurement, which would be an area, and for the mulch a volume, but you would reduce your impact with that one by looking at the different materials that you could use. But you can't do that until you know how much of everything you need. And really, with that one, you would probably also need to look at the dollar cost as well as the environmental cost. And by environmental cost, I mean, where are you getting it from? And what sort of material is it? And at the end of the day, I guess with mulch, is it going to break down?
So is environmental costs just tracking back where it came from? That's all it is. And where it's going.
Yeah, where it's come from and what it costs to get it to you, what it costs the environment to actually get it to you.
Yeah.
If we're not quite as green as Mel and we are using weedicide, you'd also be looking at volumes there. One product versus another product. And what it's actually going to kill and besides weeds. But if you're doing all that, you're probably not going to need a lot of weedicide anyway, I wouldn't have thought. And I talked about edging. And then, yeah, and again, you could look at your plants and seedlings, something that suits the area is going to have less impact on the environment rather than trying to, say, grow bananas here. Because you're going to have to put in some sort of structure. Yeah, drought-tolerant local stuff. Wobble tees are good for big areas of turf, yep.
Wait, where are you doing this?
On page 14, it asks us to start to think about measuring things.
Unit of measurement.
Oh, okay.
You guys, your main reason for measuring this is to try and get the same outcome, but be more environmentally tolerant. So you're also going to be looking at different materials. It's not just a straight, can I use less of it?
All right, so the components are back where the input was, the input ones.
Yep.
And then how many, obviously.
Yep.
Unit of measurement, so yeah.
So the unit, for a lot of your things,
whatever.
the unit of measurement is either going to be a number or
and so,
a length of pipe, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yep. So other consumables, so that'll be,
In this,
I don't know, stuff you can't get back, like fuel and shit like that.
consumables are things you've got to keep replacing. So if for any
Yeah.
reason we're having to use glue, it would go in there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Water, fuel.
Yeah. Oh, and by process energy, we mean any energy that we're using in the job. You're not going to have much of that when you're working outside, unless you're running dingoes and things like that. That would be a process energy. So it could be for our task.
So we're breaking this down into the different tables. Okay.
Yeah.
Process energy is like, say if you're using dingoes, so what do you mean by that? Like,
diesel.
So
okay, I've got that under consumables.
That's all right. That's all right.
So yeah, process energy.
Mel's confused.
That's yeah.
This is probably the hardest part of this whole unit. What I'm trying to get you to think about is how can you actually say that what I'm doing here is better than the option. So you've got to have some way of measuring the impact on the environment. And yeah, go on.
So the components are the breakdown of the different things that we're using, like pipes, valves, blah, blah, blah. Yep.
Components, I got, in brackets, input.
Yeah, I could have equally had inputs there for components. Wouldn't matter.
Yeah. Because I think process energy, I think like labour and maintenance and upkeep and stuff like that.
Well, if you're in a place where you're making a product, say as in a manufacturing type situation, your process energy is going to be things like electricity and steam, all the things that they use inside, where you're really not going to have very much of that. There would have been.
So what would our process energy be then for the tasks that we've just done for the garden bed and the?
Yeah, so this is just for the garden bed. This is just for activity that we just did.
Yeah. So it'd be fuel.
But if you picked out the main ones in the list where you could change something,
caffeine,
the impact, you would be looking at coming up with an irrigation system that actually uses the least amount of pipe and still waters everything.
So the consumables might be mulch.
Yeah, mulch is an interesting one because it could either be an input or a consumable, given that sometimes you need to top it up.
Yeah.
But so long as you measure it, and really, as I said, with mulch, you're going to look at. You could even measure your thinking with mulch. You could also include the miles that it's got to come if it was a choice between two different mulches.
Ameliorants, any soil ameliorants that we're using would be consumable, wouldn't they?
Sorry?
Any of the soil ameliorants that we're using, like,
yes.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so Mel's got other consumables. Really, a consumable is something that almost is a maintenance type thing where once you've used it up, you've got to go and buy some more.
Yeah.
The process energy part is what it says. It's energy. It's energy that you use to do your job. No way.
So fuel, labour.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. You could include labour in there because, how far do you want to go? I mean, if you're going to say we're going to count labour, then do we want to count all the things that people need?
Can't really.
To come to work.
I can't think of anything else because we're doing it all ourselves.
That's right. And that's what I said, you haven't got a lot because you haven't got electricity. If, for instance, you were perhaps fumigating seed, then you might have a piece of equipment that does that for you. That would be using some sort of energy.
So the Kanga could probably go in there.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you put it, so long as you count it somewhere.
I just put out fuel. So that pretty much blankets it. That blankets for travel as well. So
true.
And really, you want to be looking at perhaps fuel miles as a measurement if you're travelling. You could get right into it and say, oh, I'm going to get a more efficient vehicle to move my stuff around. But that's not just for this job, is it? But I'm going to look at how far I've got to travel. It could be that this job is, I think my brain needs more processing energy too. Special K? Nah.
Caffeine.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep track of everything here. Yeah, so we were looking at, oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. If your job's a long way away, maybe you make a decision rather than driving to the job every day, I'm actually going to stay there. That's really starting to stretch what we're doing though. Or you might have a limit as to how far away you take work. Have a play with it anyway. I might just leave you with it, and we can perhaps have a look at what you come up with, because it is something you need to think about. But at the end of the day,
when you're saying,
we want to come up with a garden with the least amount of environmental impact that we can. And that's why I like Mel's further up.
when you
That drought tolerant local stuff, certainly for plants, is going to have the least amount of impact on the environment, if there is any such thing.
So when you're talking about the alternatives and stuff, where does that go in this? Is that further on, or what's the go there? Because we're just
that would be an analysis of your information.
Yeah. So where's that? Is that something we write down, or is that something you do? Like
that would be in like a report to the person that you're going to do the job for. Yeah, don't worry about the 100 hours, Mel. That's been left in. That's from using equipment, and we're not using a lot of equipment too. That's an alternative. If you've say you're running a generator, for some things you can use quantity used. For other things, you have to look at how long it gets used for.
I feel sorry for Shannon. She's going to have to watch this.
Yeah, she's got to look at all this. But it might be worth just going back, having a look at the couple of examples there. Maybe even just the really simple potting up plants one, and doing a measurement of the inputs for that. I don't think I did that as an example. I think I just did the mower. Yeah, I suggested some measurements for using a mower. But you could equally do it for any activity, because at the end of the day, what you're doing is gathering data. So then you're going to do some sort of analysis of the data, and you're going to say, well, okay, if we use sugarcane mulch as a mulch versus using some other mulch, the one that we've chipped up all your prunings from the last 12 months to make, then here's the difference in the effect on the environment.
Okay.
Certainly not going to be showing you the video today. That's all right.
Comparison.
When you're ready, I might just do a little bit more theory. No more PowerPoint.
So with this, what we're doing pretty much is doing two hypothetical scenarios with all the bits and pieces, and just comparing the difference.
Yeah, you could do it that way. Yep.
That's yeah, cool.
So just a note on this. I did have a look at the assessment tool when we had the break before. And you know how it says in assessment task 3 to do a report for your employer?
Yeah.
And it says to, using the example you chose earlier. So really that's the example that you've carried through from question 5, where you've chosen a task, a common task, list the resources, and then indicate how much you're using, and that actually flows through. And you would also use it for question 8. So question 5 and question 8 are going to be the tasks that you use for task 2 to write your report, which is a memo. That's in your assessment tool, Mel. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm not sure whether, I'm not sure whether Shannon can see the chat. So that's going to be interesting. She'll be able to see it at the moment, but whether she can see the, oh, maybe not. I'll have a look in the video when it comes back anyway. If not, I'll just have to work through it with her.
Sorry, Tracy. So are you saying that question 5 and question 8 can relate to the tasks that we just did in our...
whatever you want it to be. This one's just an example. So if you can think of something else that makes more sense to you, maybe that is less complex than what we've just done.
Okay, yep.
Then you could use that.
All right, thanks.
I've been writing all this in the other book.
So the questions are actually in your assessment tool.
Yeah.
So that's this one with the staple in the wrong corner.
Yeah.
Maybe that's your task for between now and when we meet again, is to actually have a bit of a go at those, just so we can start to see what we have to recover again that we haven't quite, either I haven't fully covered enough, and certainly haven't covered legislation yet, so don't get too stressed about that one, which I think is only one question. So that we can start to nail the assessment for this as well.
Yeah. Discuss the types of environmental legislation that apply. Yeah, there's 3 on legislation, 3 questions.
Okay, don't worry about those yet. Oh, okay. No, we'll do legislation next time. I'm not going to push that through now.
Can we just make one up question? Yeah, I get you.
Have a look at the questions anyway, and anything that you're not able to answer, we'll look at next time. So yeah, it's a familiarisation, I guess, with the questions rather than an actual, oh, this is the answer I'm going to hand in. Oh, Anne's had to go for a minute. Don't want her job at the moment. We haven't decided when everything's due yet. Mel, that's up to us. We'll work it out in the next few weeks.
When lockdown's
probably
finished.
Yes, probably the end of the year. So long as your end of the year is the same as my end of the year.
2025.
No, that's not going to work.
By end of the decade, yeah.
I would expect probably, we have got a day in October as a finish off date, and at that point I would expect that you've pretty much had a really good look at the assessments and you've got things in place, and that'll be just to iron out any problems you're having. So say the end of October would be good for me, if you could get it in by then, given that I'm meant to have results and everything in, I think, the first week in December, I think. But I want it in before that. Okay, so if we might, the night before, New Year's Eve.
What was Erin's rule? It's got to be in by midnight or something. So you can stay up all night and send it. If it's a minute after midnight, yeah, it's not accepted and shit like that.
But certainly, perhaps the next time we meet, we'll iron out, when we've got Shannon hopefully on deck as well, we'll iron out an actual date. We got to be fair. Okay. So I might leave you with that one for now, because it is something you need time to absorb. And we might just run through the topic on purchasing strategies and perhaps finish off. We'll come back to efficiency targets, I think. You need to get your head around that. And then we'll just finish off the environmental impact one. So the what happens when there's actually an emergency type impact. And that'll be finished too then. That should just about see us out for now. So I'm on page 15 in your resource where it talks about purchasing. We touched on this earlier. So it actually begins outside of your workplace or outside of, if we're looking at it from a personal point of view, it happens before we even buy anything. So you could have green procurement of lots of different items. The one that comes to mind is buying green electricity. You pay a little bit extra on your electricity bill. That doesn't mean that it's actually coming from a green source, but where possible, your retailer has purchased their electricity from somewhere where the impact is reduced. And if there's anything left over, they tell us it's going to go into researching green power. I don't believe it. I don't do it. I don't think they can possibly do it, given that in Victoria, most of our power comes from the same place anyway. The environmental impact's going to be exactly the same. But you could also look at the person that you're buying or the company that you're buying things from. What's their environmental outlook? Are they trying to do things in a way that reduces their environmental footprint as well? So that might be a criteria that you use when you're deciding whether to buy one item or another. And you could also look again, as I said, at...
So you could just go...
Just go what?
Sorry, my internet just went funny.
Oh, okay.
So you can research the environmental statements and stuff that they
That's
all
right.
over there. Yeah.
Yep.
Energy.
So the dot points are really what you're thinking about there. Is reducing environmental impact important to the person that you're dealing with? At the moment, what's coming into your workplace and just being thrown away without actually being used? So that was the bags that we had before. Whether it's being thrown into recycling or whether it's being thrown away. What happens to whatever it is that you've bought when it's no longer useful? We have to have it at the time, but is it something that can perhaps be repurposed rather than just thrown away? Does the purchase have any specific storage requirements that you might need to, and I guess this is thinking about when you're actually going to buy it. And I'm thinking here, refrigeration now or ventilation. Is whatever you're buying, has it got special storage requirements that are actually going to have any energy input? How far does the item travel to get to you, and can you get it locally? We've already talked about that one. So I'd ask you to find out if your organisation's got a purchasing or procurement strategy. And if we were to use TAFE, we could say yes, because we are starting to go down that track where we're asking our suppliers, well, what are you doing to produce this product to reduce the impact on the environment? We're still in the baby phases of that. You don't have to do that activity. That's just something to prompt your thinking. That one's in there for people who actually are in a workplace already, and it's not an accessible thing anyway, so you don't have to do it. It's just to check your thinking. So let's have a look at, we've already done a little bit on environmental impacts, on environmental risk. I've gone to page 18 because I'm going to do this now just because we've already had it in the PowerPoint, because in the book it actually outlines some of the things that are in the PowerPoint and puts it into another format for those of us who might like this other format. So I think we covered all the environmental risks in our discussion earlier, the ones on page 18, or maybe not. Let's just check. So we talked about soil erosion and keeping some vegetative cover on exposed surfaces. It doesn't matter whether it's in the hills or whether it's out on the plains where soil can be blown away. It's really important that there's something's holding the soil together. It doesn't hold itself together. We could have chemical drift or a spill. And living in the Goulburn Valley, I think we've been exposed to chemical drift for a long time. And that's perhaps got to stop. I'm thinking the way the orchards spray, their habits have actually changed big time even in recent times. The way they, either the chemicals that they use, the way they apply them, or maybe that they don't. They use other methods. It's a lot to be said for having troops fossick around under trees to keep pests under control, but that's another story. We could have water pollution, so things getting into our waterways. The damage to vegetation relates to the soil erosion. Because we want that to happen. We certainly don't want clear felling. Salinity's got to go in there somewhere. That seems to have gone a little bit quiet in recent years. But remembering too that salinity is not just of water, it's also of soil.
Are we supposed to be writing this down somewhere?
No, it's really just.
Are we just discussing it?
Just a discussion.
Yep, cool.
Because we've got a filled-in table on the next page that actually tells us about the risk, the associated damage, how it occurs, and how we can minimise. It's in the table on the next page.
19?
Yep.
Yep.
So that was for parks and gardens management in particular.
Mm-hmm.
We could, so then on the next page, we've got a blank table as an example. So again, you can either discuss the example now, or you can take it away and perhaps have a think about it, and we'll look at it first up next time. It's up to you. How are you wearing? It's been a bit. The resource measurement always is a big brain drain. I actually think you can fill that table in no worries with what we've talked about already today. And you don't
Mel's
have
brain is deady dead. Mine's on the way.
Pardon?
Mel's brain is deady dead. Mine's on the way.
That's all right. Would you want to have a look at... No, it doesn't fit in. I've got a video, but it doesn't fit in.
For this resource document, we don't have to hand that in, do we?
Which one? The one in your learner guide?
Yeah, the one we've been filling in
practice.
activities for.
That's a
Oh, that's
practice.
right, because I've scribbled all over it.
No, that's
so.
practice.
Yeah,
That's
me
all
too.
right. You'll be doing
that's
similar
cool.
in your assessment anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, we do it
That's
again,
a
yay.
practice. Yeah, my brain's pretty dead too. I had a night class last night.
Oh, yeah.
Might have binged watched on Netflix a little bit.
Xbox for me.
I had a real night class last night. Yeah, we did 3 hours on OH&S consultation last night. Ugh.
God.
Yeah, with a Cert 4 group. Oh. And yeah, they were pretty brain dead too because most of them had been at work all day.
Speaking of, I've got to...
Yes. What have you got? Have you got it for me?
Yeah, I was going to ask you last week about it. Is my stuff for operate machinery? Would that pass with the softs and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah,
like,
you could use some of your... So you did some JSAs and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got about half a dozen of each because every subject we do some form of OH&S. So
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can add them to your assessment. That's fine.
Yeah, and I just hand in if you say, if you just tell me what else I might need. Oh, there was one about something about repetitive injuries. I remember doing that in the classroom where you circle the bits on the body. Do I have to do that again, or? I think I got it here something.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, that one.
Xbox. Mel wants your gamer tag. I can't read that. Oh, that's a... Yeah, we do need the manual handling risk assessment. Yes, I need that.
Oh, so I got it, yeah. Tell me where it hurts.
Just hand it all in, I'll figure it out.
Oh, yeah, sweet. I'll give you the puzzle.
Yeah, I can do that. The important part really is, now I've got to think which group it is.
Nearly done.
Yeah, just hand me up whatever you think I need and I'll figure it out. Too long ago. But as a minimum, I need the one that looks like this for OH&S. I need that.
I got that. Yeah, I got that.
And whatever it says in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the manual handling risk assessment, I think I actually asked you to hand in. Can't remember.
Because I'm sure I've already done that. Like I did that and we handed it in on the day, didn't we?
No, you didn't hand this in on the day. This is the bit that I
Yeah.
want. The one that says OH&S.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have a look and anyway, talk to me about it, and we'll figure out what you need to hand in.
Yeah. Yeah. Work it out. I'll work it out later.
Okay. The other thing that it does talk about in your assessment, and it'll be in this book somewhere. Let me just find it. Is an environmental policy. Okay. Page 26 talks about an environmental policy. I've got an example of one that I'm going to put up and give you a look at. Where'd it go? That's right, it's on the internet.
Environmental policy on page 26 in the workbook or the resource?
In the resource. So,
changing workplace procedures.
no, that's not it.
That's what's on my page 26.
Oh, is it?
Hmm.
I've got, oh, hang on. Sorry, it's 25. I'm going blind.
Ah, yep, sorry. Yep.
Sorry. Yeah, we'll look at changing workplace procedures. Perhaps one of the other sessions that we've got. But most workplaces today, and this goes on from your purchasing strategy, most workplaces will have an environmental policy, and there's heaps of them on the internet. I just Googled for 2 seconds and I found one. But yeah, there's a statement. It's specific to each workplace. But if there is a policy, it means that some of your decision making is already. Oh, okay.
We're talking.
No, that's all right.
I hate Borderlands.
I must admit, it's easy to get addicted to electronic games, but I've never gone down the road of doing one on the internet. But no, I'm not going to go there. I'd never do anything else.
Well, you heard what
Tetris.
a zoo it is here.
Yeah, Tetris.
We used to sit there and watch her play that. She was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, Tetris is one of the early ones. I used to really like that. Anyway, usually your environmental policy is quite short. So this one's, it's a little bit of a scroll. I'm just going to show you one. So I've got to share. Click another click and it should share. Oh, go away. Oh, I missed a webinar. What a shame. What a shame. So you should be seeing EnviroPrint. So this one's for a printing firm, and they've gone through all the things that they're going to do to make sure that they're an environmentally friendly company. So high quality, sustainable printing and marketing options. And lots of times these are just words that are put together, but sounds good. And when you look at it, it actually is better for the environment. So keeping abreast of environmental good practice and complying with environmental legislation standards. So in the printing game, particularly if they're an old style printing company where they're using ink, they're going to have some waste that they've got to get rid of. So that's what they're referring to there. Policy, looking to always improve and also pass that on to our customers, and that we have stewardship. So they're the sort of things that we're looking at. And I think in one of the questions, the only reason why we're putting this up, and you can Google it, everywhere's got an environmental policy. I reckon for this group, there's something about environmental policy. Saw it before. Now I can't see it. Well, maybe I was dreaming. Next time. Does TAFE have an environmental policy? Well, kind of, sort of. Not as good as this one.
Are we doing this task now, writing an environmental policy together?
Yeah, okay. So if we were in a horticultural workplace, let's tackle it that way, because I'm sure that you have a think about activity 5 and what we might put in if we were Noel's landscaping business. What might his environmental policy say?
I'm trying to think. It's not working.
Have a go.
That we would try to be mindful of the natural resources that we use. Is
Yes,
try enough?
That might be a dot point. Oh, I've lost Mel. Oh, okay. Mel's suggesting I have a go at online gaming. I don't think I'm going to go there. The only place the environmental policy part comes up in your assessments is in the document portfolio in task 2. Just asked you to find an example of one. That's all right. But yeah, for our landscaping business, it might say that Noel's Landscaping is committed to providing you with a service that meets your expectations but minimises the effect on the environment. It could be that short. Or it might be that I use environmentally friendly chemicals, if chemicals were an issue. Or it could be that Noel's also going to suggest that we source all your requirements for your job as locally as possible to reduce the effect on the environment.
He's going to buy it all off eBay for cheap.
Yeah, well, that would be my take on it, Noel. I would go and find something on the internet.
That's what I'd do.
Wait 7 weeks for it to come from China.
Yeah,
that's right.
But if you're writing a policy, though, I would find something on the internet that's nearly what you want to say.
Yeah.
I don't think we need that share anymore, so I'll stop that. And then, yeah, pinch their ideas and change it a bit to suit you. Would be what I would do.
Yep.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of the theory that we needed to cover in this session. We've got 2 more theory sessions and then a catch-up day. So I reckon we leave it for now.
Everyone's just shut up here, so it's a good time.
I'm struggling, I'll admit it. I think a Zoom session for, what have we been going, 2.5 hours is probably nearly the equal of a full day at TAFE. Because it's physically draining. So the plan for next week will be to cover off the legislative requirements, or next time, which is on, let's just check our calendars. Crikey. Calendars, I reckon. It's in the afternoon, there it is, the 8th of September. Is that meshing with everyone? Have we got the same day?
Yeah, 8th of September, 15th of September, and 13th of October.
Yeah. Yeah, so really we want to finish all the content coverage by the end of the session on the 15th. So we'll make sure that we do the... Oh, you are not going to be sick on the 8th of September.
Who said that? So the next session we have together is on the 15th of the 9th, right?
8th of the 9th.
8th of the 9th, okay.
Because we split it. It was going to be for the whole day on the 15th.
Yep.
That we split it. And it's afternoons next time.
Okay.
Because I'm teaching in the morning.
So and you'll send us the time and link and blah,
yeah,
blah, blah.
I'll send you a reminder closer to the time. And a Zoom address, and I'll get the right one this time. I went and joined the wrong meeting trying to get in today.
I hate it when that happens.
When you set up a meeting, it doesn't actually tell you which one.
Go and have a break.
You've got to try and figure it out. Anyway, time
Yeah.
to to go and do something else, I think.
Have a Panadol. Get rid of that headache.
Yeah. Okay. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep. See ya.
See ya.
Thanks,
See you,
Tracy.
Mel.
See ya.
See ya,
Bye.
Mel.